Okay, so good morning mga ka-symptoms. Ayan, ganyan ang ating dinamatian sa umaga. Hopefully you're all in good health na ngayong Thursday morning to discuss corporations and SRC, which will be the single highest number of topics, no, or highest number of items that will be asked pagdating sa board exam. Because corporations will account for 27 items based on the current TOS of the BOA. Ayan, magandang umaga. Sana nakaligo kayong lahat at wala kayong sintomas. Ako medyo masakit yung lalamunan kaya naka-isolate ako since Tuesday. Yeah. Anyway, so let's start with corporations by its definition. Under the Corporation Code, hindi rin naman binago ang definition under the revised Corporation Code. A corporation is still defined as an artificial being created by operation of law, having the right of succession and the powers, attributes, and properties that may be expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. From the very definition itself, we will already note the four important attributes of a corporation, which will be the source, no, also of a lot of topics that may be covered by the board exam. So unang-una, it is considered as an artificial being from the very definition. It is created by operation of law, which would necessitate the consent of the state for the creation of the corporation itself. It has the right of succession or yung tinatawag nga nating strong juridical personality. And it can only act within the powers, attributes, and own properties that may be expressly authorized by law or incidental to its existence. So isa-isa natin silang i-discuss. No? Number one, a corporation is considered an artificial being. As an incident of a corporation by legal fiction, being an artificial being, it will have a personality that is separate and distinct from the persons composing it. Ito nga rin yung tinatawag nating doctrine of separate juridical personality or corporate entity theory. Essentially, for purposes of applying the law, we will consider the corporation as if it is a separate person. No? It will not be represented or affected by any of the transactions that will be entered into by the individual owners, may they be stockholders or members. Kaya it follows that if, for example, a stockholder would be liable for a particular obligation and unable to meet it, no? Because, for example, payment of money ang obligation ni stockholder or member, tapos wala siyang pambayad, technically speaking, the corporation will not be liable for that because the obligation pertains to the stockholder or the member, which is a separate person. No? In the same vein na kung ako ay may utang, hindi yan pwedeng bayaran ng ibang tao or hindi pwedeng pagbayarin ng ibang tao kasi magkaibang personality kami. No? Ganon din, by all intents and purposes, by legal fiction, we consider the corporation as a separate and distinct individual or different person, no, from the individual stockholders or members. In the same manner, if a corporation would be liable for a particular obligation, as a general rule, its officers, directors, or stockholders or members may not be liable for the same, particularly if they acted only in an official capacity. Kasi ang obligation ni corporation ay kanya lang, kaya as a general rule, the persons composing it may not be liable for the same. So let's give this particular Supreme Court case as an illustration of this doctrine. So ABC and XYZ Corporation entered into a contract particularly for the purchase of equipment. No, yan yung naging kaso dito. So they entered into a contract of sale si XYZ. They are represented by their respective presidents who signed the contract in their official capacity as such president. No? Ngayon, for some reason, si ABC Corporation ay napadala kay XYZ that they will no longer be continuing with the contract or that they're canceling the contract of sale already without any valid ground. Ngayon, ang nangyari dito, XYZ Corporation sued not only ABC Company or ABC Corporation for breach of contract, but also the president in his personal capacity, being the signatory of the contract in behalf of the corporation itself. Umabot ito ng Supreme Court, and the very question here that was raised is that can the president be liable for the breach of contract that was committed by ABC Corporation? And the Supreme Court said that no, because the president entered into the contract or signed the contract for that matter only in his official capacity. Kaya as a rule, okay, the corporation having a personality separate and distinct from the persons composing it, the president cannot be made liable on his personal capacity. Unless, of course, the exceptions that we will be discussing later will apply. No? Na kahit official capacity ang kanilang pagpirma, the officers of the corporation or even the directors can be made liable personally. Pero hindi nag-apply yung kahit anong exception dito. That's why the general rule that a corporation having a separate and distinct personality will be applicable. And since ABC Corporation is the party rather to the contract, it's the one who it is the only one liable under the breach of contract and not the president in his personal capacity. So yan ang tinatawag nating corporate entity theory or the doctrine of separate and distinct personality. Now, take note, however, that the legal fiction of a corporation having a separate and distinct personality will be applicable only in legitimate transactions. No? It will be subject to equitable limitations such that if such doctrine will be used to cloak or cover for fraud or illegality or work injustice, it will not be applicable anymore. Yan nga yung tinatawag nating piercing the veil of corporate entity. So, whenever the legal fiction or the notion that a corporation has a separate legal personality will be used to defeat public convenience, justify wrong, protect fraud, defend crime, or otherwise commit any illegal activities, no, then the doctrine will be set aside by the courts. So, hindi na i-regard si corporation na may separate personality siya, or kung dalawang corporation na pinag-uusapan natin, they will be merged into one as if they are both liable for the very same obligation contracted by either of them. No? Kasi nga, pang legitimate transactions lang dapat itong concept ng corporate entity theory. Kaya if for example, no, this is the corporation, supposedly the stockholders, this is the corporation itself, literally speaking, or at least figuratively for that matter, no, the courts will pierce this particular veil to make the stockholders liable as if the corporation is just a partnership, no, where the partners will be regarded as personally liable also for the obligation of the corporation. Literally speaking, there's a veil covering the stockholders or the members, and it will be pierced so that the persons inside the veil may be made liable for such obligation. Now, the same will also be true if the corporation will only be considered a dummy or yung tinatawag na alter ego or business conduit. No? Ginagamit lang siyang cover or a blind for that matter in order to escape liability on the part of the stockholders or the members. In cases where the doctrine of piercing the veil of corporate entity will be applicable, again, we don't consider the corporation as a separate juridical personality. Okay? Kaya nga tinatawag natin dun sa mga members, they are a mere association of persons na lamang. No? It's as if siniset aside natin yung separate personality ng corporation. To give you an example where the Supreme Court applied this particular principle, itong si Isabelo Kalingasan ay may-ari ng isang jeepney. No? Yung kanyang driver, si Alfredo Carrillo, nakasagasa ng bata. No? Ngayon, itong ginawa ni Kalingasan is that he transferred the said jeepney, yan lang ang natitirang assets, yan lang ang isang asset niya, to a corporation, no? Which they called Feli Transport Corporation, where the incorporators is Isabelo Kalingasan, yung asawa niya, yung anak niya, at yung kanyang kamag-anak, no? Si Dr. Kalingasan at dalawang anak ni Dr. Kalingasan. At yun lang din ang nag-iisang asset ng corporation, yung jeep lamang. Eventually, Alfredo Carrillo was found guilty by the court for reckless imprudence and made him liable. No? And being the employer, si Isabelo Kalingasan was made subsidiarily liable for the civil liability. So dahil hindi nakabayad itong si Alfredo Carrillo, sinisingil ngayon itong si Isabelo Kalingasan to pay the civil liability. Pero ang sinasabi niya, wala na siyang assets. So ang ginagawa ngayon ng mga ng pamilya nung batang nasagasaan is that they wanted to use the jeepney to execute the judgment, no? Na ibibenta in a public auction to pay for the civil liability. Ang naging argument dito ni Isabelo Kalingasan, hindi nyo pwedeng gamitin yung jeepney na pambayad kasi hindi ako ang may-ari niyan. Ang may-ari niyan ay yung corporation which has a separate and juridical personality from me, no? That's why my liability, the corporation cannot be liable for that. So tama ba si Kalingasan dito? Sabi ng Supreme Court, hindi, no? Apparently and obviously rather, the main purpose why Kalingasan established the corporation was only to evade the civil liability that he has resulting from the driver-employee being convicted. So ang naging conclusion dito ng Supreme Court, dahil ang mga incorporators ng corporation ay mga kamag-anak lamang and the only asset of the corporation is the jeepney, no, that caused the accident itself, then the Supreme Court deemed it proper to pierce the veil of corporate entity and make the jeepney answerable for the civil liability even if it is owned by the corporation. Kasi dito, this is the classic example where the corporation was only used to evade liability, no? Not being used for legitimate purposes, then the doctrine of separate and juridical personality should not be applicable, no? Kaya dito, the jeepney, even if it is owned by the corporation, no, in all legal papers can be made or can be used to pay the civil liability of one of the stockholders, which in this case would be Isabelo Kalingasan. So again, the doctrine of corporate entity or the corporate entity theory or the doctrine of separate juridical personality will be applicable only in cases of legitimate transactions. If it will be for anything unlawful, it may justify the courts to pierce the veil of corporate entity, okay, setting aside the doctrine of separate juridical personality. So yan ang nagiging consequence ng corporation being an artificial being. Second attribute of a corporation is that it is created by operation of law, which means that the state's consent must be given in order for a corporation to be validly created. Ang nagiging consequence tuloy niyan, it will answer the question now, when does a corporation obtain a separate juridical personality? As a general rule, the commencement of corporate existence will be upon issuance of the certificate of registration or incorporation. Pagka-issue lang yan, which signifies the consent of the state already for the creation of the corporation, that's the only time that the corporation acquires juridical personality and legal existence. Technically speaking, no, like in our law on contracts, kung kunwari, you entered into a contract with the corporation na wala pang certificate of registration, technically speaking, void ang iyong kontrata. Kasi walang legal existence yung kakontrata mo, that's why void ang contract. No, ganun ang nangyayari tuloy dyan as a legal consequence. Nevertheless, being a general rule, there are exceptions, no, na hindi kailangan yung issuance ng certificate of registration para magkaroon ng legal personality ang isang corporation. And those exceptions will include a corporation by estoppel, in which case, those supposed stockholders or members of the corporation are liable as general partners and in their personal capacity because the corporation is technically non-existent, no? Kaya wala man lang in-applyan na articles of incorporation, what more na magkakaroon pa siya ng certificate of registration, di ba? So hindi applicable dyan ang general rule. Pangalawa will be those created by special laws or yung tinatawag nating merong special charter, no? Kasi the law itself creating the corporation will provide for its effectivity or when that particular entity will start its juridical personality or legal existence. And lastly, a corporation sole. Because a corporation sole legal existence begins from the time of filing of the verified articles of incorporation. Hindi na kailangan hintayin yung issuance. Pagka-apply pa lang, meron na siyang legal existence. Okay, now the third attribute of a corporation is that it has a right of succession. Hindi katulad sa partnership where personal circumstances affecting a partner may dissolve the entire partnership dahil nga magkakaroon ng change, no, in the relationship of the partners. Sa corporation, hindi yan applicable. So even if a stockholder dies, becomes incapacitated or punished with civil interdiction, or kahit lahat sila sabay-sabay, no, will undergo those personal circumstances, it will not affect the personality of the corporation or its legal existence. Kaya nga, there are some authors who would refer to this as the strong juridical personality of the corporation. No? Kasi kahit pa lahat ng stockholders or members niya ay mamatay ng sabay-sabay, lahat maging incapacitated or lahat maging civilly interdicted, it will not in any way affect the juridical personality of the corporation itself. And the last attribute of a corporation based on its very definition is that it has powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incidental to its existence. More so actually, pag binasa mo ito, it will act more as a limitation, no? Because the corporation can only act within or own properties for that matter within those matters that are expressly authorized by law or maybe incidental to its existence. Kaya nga ang tawag din natin ito ay yung tinatawag nating doctrine of limited capacity, because technically they can only act within the powers that are expressly authorized by law, implied thereto, no, or therefrom rather, or incidental to its existence. Anything else outside those express, implied, or incidental powers will be regarded as ultra vires. No? Kaya nga, nagiging limitation ito kasi specified lang kung ano ang mga pwedeng gawin ng isang corporation or what types of properties lang ang pwede niyang hawakan. No? So sabi natin, there are three kinds of powers or classification of powers of the corporation. One will be its express powers, which can either be expressly indicated in the corporation code and other laws or in its articles of incorporation. Meron ding tinatawag na implied powers, which will be implied from the express powers in order to be fully executed. And there are those which are incidental to its existence, no, which will be necessary in order for the corporation to function properly. Although, pagdating sa totoong buhay, hindi naman na ito problema as to classification because almost always everything is expressed, no, in the articles of incorporation itself. So for example, you will indicate as one of the express powers of the corporation will be to acquire real property. No? It can be implied that with regards to the power to acquire real property, implied na dyan yung kanyang power to dispose or power to mortgage or pledge for that matter any personal or real property. No? Kasi being an owner of the property, all other incidents of that ownership must be applicable as well, even if it is not specifically indicated in the express powers. Now, kung kunwari naman, kahit walang nakalagay na express power to acquire real property, a corporation may still validly acquire a principal place of business. Now, because it is necessary in order to function properly, it may be considered incidental to its existence. Okay? Kaya nga, sabi natin sa totoong buhay, hindi talaga yung problema dahil nakaspecify naman yan lahat sa articles para sigurado. No? Para sigurado. So what are those express powers that were indicated in the corporation code itself? A corporation may sue and be sued in its corporate name, particularly if it will be regarded as the real party in interest. No? Kasi required yan under the rules of court na dapat yung real party in interest ang nakapangalan sa kaso. So kung kunwari ABC Corporation ng aggrieved party or ABC Corporation ng defendant, dapat ang title ng kaso ABC Corporation versus defendant or complainant versus ABC Corporation. Hindi pwedeng nakapangalan dapat yung board, yung corporate officers or stockholders kasi hindi naman sila yung party. Again, as an incident also to the corporation having a separate and juridical personality. Okay, it will also have the right of succession by its corporate name for the period of time that may be stated in the articles, which is now supposedly perpetual in existence, and its certificate of incorporation. It will also have the right or a power to adopt and use a corporate seal and to amend its articles of incorporation. As we will discuss later what will be the requirements. Or to adopt bylaws which are not contrary to law, morals, public policy, or even to amend or repeal the bylaws that has already been adopted. They will also have the power in case of stock corporations to transtock with regards to the shares of stock, not to have it subscribe or sell or dispose of the shares of stock, including those which may be considered as treasury shares. Or in case of non-stock corporation, of course, to admit members. Now, with regards properties, to transact on properties, either to acquire them, to sell, pledge, mortgage, or otherwise deal with any real and personal properties, including securities, no? As long as the transaction will be related to the lawful business of the corporation itself. Now, it will also have the power to enter into a merger consolidation, which will also cover under this discussion. Yun nga lang, ang naging amendment dito ng revised corporation code is that a corporation now may form a partnership and a joint venture. Kaya nga, practically speaking, wala na talagang difference ang partnership at joint venture, no? Because in one decision of the Supreme Court, sabi nila, the only difference between a partnership and a joint venture is that a partnership cannot be or a corporation rather, cannot be a party to a partnership. Lagi lang daw natural persons ang parties dyan. But with this amendment introduced by the revised corporation code, technically wala nang difference. No? Kasi ang partnership at joint venture, pwede na silang magkaroon ng individual partners, pwede na rin silang magkaroon ng corporation as parties. No? Hindi na, wala nang difference. Yun nga lang, bawal pa rin syempre kapag general professional partnership because that will still be limited to individual professionals. Now, they can also make donations with regards political partisan activity. You'll have to note here, however, na tinanggal lang or rather, they can make donations except with regards political partisan activity. But with the amendment introduced by the revised corporation code, tinanggal yung word na domestic, which means that the limitation or the prohibition for a corporation to donate for political partisan activity is limited now to foreign corporations only, which means that a domestic corporation may now validly donate for political partisan activity. Pwede na. So ngayon, mag-election, pwede na mag-donate ng mga corporation validly. No, hindi katulad dati na tinatawag nila sa kung ano-ano mga cost center at ano-ano mga accounting terms no ang ginagamit in order to hide yung kanilang mga political contributions. Ngayon valid na except for foreign corporations which are still prohibited from making donations for political partisan activity. They can also establish pension, retirement, and other plans for the benefit of its directors, trustees, officers, and employees, and anything that may be implied from those express powers. So yan yung mga enumeration ng express powers are specifically indicated in the corporation code itself. Now, as we have mentioned earlier, merong express, implied, and incidental powers. And again, this serves as a limitation, kaya nga tinatawag natin yung doctrine of limited capacity. No? Because anything done that is outside of the express, implied, or incidental powers will be regarded as ultra vires, no? Or that the corporation will be unauthorized to perform such acts. But take note, I'd like to clarify at this point that ultra vires acts are not necessarily illegal acts. No? But of course, on the other hand, illegal acts are technically ultra vires already. Take note that a corporation exists only with the state's consent. Kaya ang pwede lang niyang gawin will be those that will be within the bounds of the law. Kaya automatically, if it will perform something that is illegal or contrary to law, it will automatically be ultra vires. But again, not all ultra vires acts are considered illegal. I'll give you one example. In one Supreme Court case, merong isang babae, let's just call him or call her Mrs. E, gustong mangutang, no? Gustong mangutang sa isang bangko, PNB, ayan. Nangungutang siya sa PNB pero ayaw pagkatiwalaan ni PNB yung kanyang credit score. Ngayon itong si Mrs. E lumapit doon sa presidente ng ABC Corp na kanyang kaibigan, no, nasabi mag-issue ka naman ng accommodation check for me, no? So ABC Corp's check was used, pumirma diyan yung president at vice president as an accommodation party, no, to PNB. So with the strength of the check that was issued by ABC Corporation, si PNB pinautang itong si Mrs. E who eventually was not able to pay. So ang nangyari ngayon, si PNB pinagbabayad si ABC Corporation. Sabi dito ng Supreme Court, ABC Corporation cannot be made liable because a corporation cannot act as an accommodation party to a negotiable instrument. No, hindi pwede because it is not within the express, inherent, or implied powers of the corporation. So since he cannot or it cannot do that, the act of issuing the check, okay, as accommodation party will be considered as ultra vires, but it is not, okay, illegal per se. So you see, so not all ultra vires acts will be considered as illegal, but illegal acts will already be considered as ultra vires. In that case, the president and the vice president were held to be liable personally, no? Because supposedly it is not within their official capacity to issue checks in behalf of the corporation as an accommodation party. All right. Now, let's go now to classes of corporations. So corporations primarily are classified under the Corporation Code with regards their authority to distribute surplus profits or yung tinatawag nga nating dividends. No? For this purpose, a corporation may be classified as a stock corporation, in which case its capital will be divided into shares and it is authorized to distribute surplus profits or dividends to its stockholders. On the other hand, we have a non-stock corporation, the definition of which under the corporation is that it does not have authority to distribute surplus profits. Kaya you will notice, hindi talaga distinguishing factor yung divided by into shares ang kanyang capital stock. What matters with regards this distinction will be their authority to distribute surplus profits in the form of dividends. Kasi pag si stock corporation pwede, pag si non-stock corporation hindi pwede. No, yan lang ang tinitignan natin dyan. Okay, again, with regards only the authority to distribute dividends or surplus profits, yan lang ang distinction between a stock and a non-stock corporation. Okay. Now, we also classify a corporation under what law it was created, in which case a corporation can either be a domestic corporation if it is created under the laws of the Philippines or by a legislative act of Philippine Congress, or yun nga, following the provisions of a general corporation law, which in our case will be the Corporation Code of the Philippines. If it will be organized under any other law other than that of the Philippines, it will be considered a foreign corporation. So ito rin yung tinatawag nating incorporation test, where the only thing that matters for purposes of classification will be where was the corporation incorporated or under what law was it created, no? Regardless of the citizenship or nationality of its owners. Kaya for example, Maybank Philippines, oh yan, di ba? Siyempre pinopromote natin si employer. Si Maybank Philippines is 99.9% owned by a Malaysian bank, no? Malayan Banking Berhad. In that case, Maybank Philippines is still considered a domestic corporation because it was created under Philippine laws, regardless of the fact that it is 99.9% foreign-owned. No? So again, hindi nagmamatter yung nationality at citizenship ng mga may-ari or ng stockholders or members. Ang tinitignan natin under what law was it created. This will be particularly material pagdating sa inyong tax. No? Kasi iba ang taxability ng domestic corporation, iba ang taxability ng foreign corporation, regardless of the citizenship of the owners, no? Or the stockholders of the corporation. Now, with regards whether the public can own shares of stock in the corporation, we classify a corporation as closed katatlo ang importante dito, no? Limited number of persons lang ang pwedeng humawak ng shares of stock, maximum of 20. There are certain limitations or restrictions with regards to transfer of shares. And pangatlo, they cannot list in a stock exchange. No? Kaya walang public investors involved dito. Normally, a closed corporation will be sometimes referred to, at least informally, as a family-owned corporation. Kasi ang mga stockholders niya normally will be limited to family members. No? This is a very common setup with regards to hospitals, particularly sa provinces, as I've noticed. No? Kasi when I was in the auditing firm pa, most of the time, ang ino-audit ko ay mga hospital na kasi ang dami naming kliyente ng kanilang gawain ay mamili ng ospital. So nagjo-due diligence kami. Yan ang lagi namin napapansin, no? Na most of the stockholders have the same surnames. Lahat sila mga doktor. Okay? So normally, informally, we call them family-owned, no? But take note that this is not the same concept with regards sa closely held corporation pagdating sa tax. Magkaiba yun. Sa closely held corporation, they can be regarded as such even if they are not a closed corporation, technically speaking, under the corporation code. Kasi yung tatlong sinabi natin kanina are strictly must be indicated in the articles to consider the corporation as a closed corporation. Ngayon, mawala lang kahit isa sa tatlong yon na binanggit natin kanina, ang tawag na natin sa kanya ay open corporation or a regular stock corporation for that matter, who will be allowed to take in public investors or stockholders from the public, okay, which is not necessarily listed in a stock exchange, although they are authorized to do so. No? Kasi pag closed corporation, bawal. So if they do actually list in a stock exchange, which in the Philippines will only be the PSE, then they will be referred to as a publicly listed corporation. Okay. Now, we also classify corporation with regards to the purpose. A corporation's purpose can either be private, in which case it will be formed for some purpose, benefit, aim, or end for private individuals. For the benefit of the individuals comprising it or the members comprising it for that matter. Okay. Hindi katulad pag public corporation, this will be for some form of governance of a particular portion of the state. Kaya nga yung public corporations natin, yan din yung mga tinatawag na political and territorial subdivisions of the Philippines. Subdivisions, which under Article 10, Section 1 of the Constitution will be limited only to provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. Or we have special metropolitan areas pero walang ganon legally existing sa Pilipinas. No? For administration purposes lang, yung meron tayong Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, Metro Davao, pero they are not legally in existence, at least not in accordance with our Constitution. So we have, again, provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays, which are primarily formed in order to govern a particular portion of the state, which will be for the purpose of the general good and welfare. So for some governmental purposes, that's why we refer to them as public corporations. Sa law school, meron talagang subject na law on public corporations. At yan lang talaga ang dinidiscuss dyan. The local government code in relation to provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. All other types of corporation, which is not for some purpose of government, will be considered private. Okay? Even if it is government-owned for that matter, private pa rin ang classification niya. Kasi kunwari yung NAPOCOR, no, or PhilHealth, SSS, even if they are government-owned corporations, they are still private as to purpose because they are not for purposes of governing a portion of the state. Okay? Now, we also classify corporation as to whether they have a religious purpose or not. In which case, we have ecclesiastical corporation, which will be for spiritual purposes, which can either be a corporation sole or aggregate for that matter, no, or a religious society, but they are formed only for the purpose of public worship or perpetuating the right of a particular religion. As opposed to what we call a lay corporation, which will not be for purposes of religion, which may either be classified as eleemosynary if it will be for some charitable or benevolent purposes, or civil if it is not for purposes of charity. No, normally, it will be a civil corporation if it is only for the purpose of obtaining profits and eventually dividing it or distributing it through dividends to its stockholders. So, binibigyan lang din natin yan kasi yan yung mga terms na hindi naman natin basta-basta na-encounter sa araw-araw na buhay, di ba? Hindi ka naman natitisod at sasabi mo, ay, eleemosynary, di ba? Nalay eleemosynary. Hanggang ngayon medyo nalito pa rin ako pag ako yung magsuspelling niyan, no? Kasi ngayon may double E tapos puro Y lang siya at walang I. Anyway, so that will be the classification with regards a corporation as to whether it has a religious purpose. Now, as to the number of persons composing it, we have a corporation that is considered aggregate if there will be more than one person composing the corporation itself. But if it will be composed of one person only, it will be considered as a sole corporation. Under the corporation code, a sole corporation would normally be created or formed by the head of a particular religious society or a religious organization. No? So you have the Archbishop of Manila is a corporation sole. The Pope is a corporation sole. No? This is only for purposes of perpetuating rights or ownership, particularly for property, para laging may nakapangalan sa property na pagmamayari ng isang relihiyon. No? Yan lang naman. Kaya nga, yung mga corporation sole, as we have mentioned earlier, may already be or may already have a separate juridical personality upon filing of the verified articles of incorporation. No? So dito, again, incorporation sole, thus the juridical personality attaches to the title, not to the person. No? So kahit mapalitan na yung Archbishop of Manila, mapalitan na yung Pope, okay, meron pa rin corporation sole attaching to that title. Kaya nga, even before the revised corporation code, a corporation sole already has perpetual existence. Na? Perpetual existence ang corporation sole, even before the amendment introduced by the revised corporation code. As to validity of formation, ito yung paboritong topic pagdating sa bar exam. No? Pero pagdating sa board, parang hindi siya masyadong na-highlight na part ng questioning. Particularly kasi wala namang mga specific provisions that you will find in the Corpo Code, but more exposed pagdating sa Supreme Court decisions. So for this purpose, we classify the corporation number 1 as to whether they complied with the requirements for a valid incorporation, and as a consequence of which, do they have a separate and juridical personality, or otherwise stated, ang tanong natin dyan, will the corporate entity theory be applicable to them? No? And also whether we can question the personality or the legal existence of the corporation either by a direct attack or by a collateral attack to their personality. At the outset, a direct attack on the personality of the corporation, the very subject of the case will be the questioning the legality of the corporation itself. Yun mismo yung tanong, no? Or yung final mong kaso na hindi siya legally in existence. Unlike in a collateral attack, iba yung final mong kaso pero kailangang i-discuss ang legal personality ni corporation. So kunwari, nag-file ka ng breach of contract na kaso, pero in that matter, diniscuss yung legal personality niya, collateral lang, no? Kasi hindi yung legal personality ang subject ng kaso. So, first, we have what you call a de jure corporation, in which case, it will have full compliance with all the requirements for a valid corporation. Of course, it will have a legal separate personality from the stockholders, and you cannot question its legal personality either by direct attack or by a collateral attack. Because having a certificate of incorporation or registration, its existence is presumed already or conclusively presumed by law, unless of course it is already dissolved. No? We also have what you call a de facto corporation, where compliance with the requirements is in good faith pero hindi lahat na comply. No? Meron lang tinatawag na colorable compliance. Nevertheless, the law allows it to have a personality distinct and separate from its stockholders, or applicable pa rin yung tinatawag nating corporate entity theory. In this case, however, the personality of the de facto corporation may be questioned but only via a direct attack, in which case we call it a quo warranto proceeding. Narinig nyo na yan, no? Quo warranto din yung ginamit against Chief Justice Sereno, but that's not the only province of quo warranto. Pwede rin siyang gamitin to question the legal personality of a de facto corporation. Nevertheless, you cannot question the legal personality of a de facto corporation via a collateral attack. Unlike a corporation by estoppel, walang kahit anong compliance with the requirements for valid incorporation, kaya nga general partners ang treatment natin for the persons composing it. No? They will be liable as if they are general partners because the corporation itself will not have a personality separate and distinct from the stockholders. In such a manner, the legality of its existence may be questioned either via a direct attack or by a collateral attack. Kasi nga wala naman siyang separate juridical personality. So as we have mentioned earlier, may colorable compliance lang for a de facto corporation, but the requisites for its valid existence is that there is a law under which it can be incorporated. There was colorable compliance to incorporate based on that law under which it could have been incorporated, and there is exercise or use of the corporate powers. When all three requisites are present, we have a de facto corporation that has a separate juridical personality, but that personality may be questioned but only via a direct attack called a quo warranto proceeding. So to give you an illustration na tinanong sa bar exam before, who knows, no? Baka mali mo tanong din sa board exam. So Mr. X was invited by his friends to invest in XYZ Corporation where he was appointed as president. He entered into a contract of sale with ABC Corporation to purchase equipment that will be used in the corporation itself in accordance with the primary purpose of the corporation. It was later on, however, discovered that the articles of incorporation of XYZ was never filed with the SEC. So si Mr. X ngayon, he attended to that concern and what do you call this, applied with the SEC to issue the certificate of incorporation. However, when the certificate of incorporation or registration was issued, the corporation was already bankrupt, and ngayon kinakasuhan na si XYZ Corp at si Mr. X in his personal capacity for breach of contract. Mr. X now invokes the corporate entity theory, saying that he merely signed the contract of sale or purchase, for that matter, in his official capacity as the president. And since the corporation has a separate and distinct personality, he should not be liable in his personal capacity. No? So it all boils down to the premise whether we can consider the corporation as a de facto corporation, in which case the corporate entity theory will be applicable, or kung hindi, it will be a corporation by estoppel because it transacted with ABC Corporation as if it is a corporation, no? And ABC Corporation was led to believe that it is a corporation when in truth and in fact it was not. So if it is a corporation by estoppel, walang magiging separate juridical personality ang corporation, in which case Mr. X may be personally liable. And in this case, sabi ng Supreme Court, mali si Mr. X. He can be made personally liable. Sabi ng Supreme Court, the filing of the articles of incorporation will be the bare minimum as to whether there is an attempt in good faith to incorporate. No? So dahil walang filing ng articles of incorporation before they transacted with ABC Corp, then it is not a de jure, more so, or it is not a de facto corporation, more so it will not be a de jure corporation, but only a corporation by estoppel. So dahil corporation by estoppel lamang siya, walang separate juridical personality, which means that there is no corporate entity theory applicable. Mr. X can be held liable in his personal capacity. You'll have to note also that because it is a corporation by estoppel only, its legal personality is validly questioned in this case. No? Kasi nga sabi natin, kahit pa breach of contract ang kaso, pwede mong questionin ang legal personality ng corporation by estoppel via a collateral attack. Kung de facto sana siya, hindi pwede yan. Dapat yung kaso mismo will be for the existence or legal existence of the corporation itself. So those are our classifications of corporations. Let's proceed to some of our MCQs that you will find in your handouts. Hopefully, nakapagsagot na kayo ahead of time, no, para medyo mas mabilis yung pacing natin sa pagsasagot natin. Launch MCQ. For question number 1, an ultra vires act is an act or transaction of a corporation which, what will be the, what do you call this? What will be the best answer, no? Which will continue the sentence on describing what an ultra vires act will be. Dumami na kayo. Magandang umaga, lalo na sa mga medyo late nakapasok. Mga ka-symptoms. Hindi na mga ka-hangover. Siyempre, hindi ako minom kagabi, di ba? Kasi masama nga yung pakiramdam ko. Kaya nga meron tayo nito. What is the remedy of the creditor? Lola Remedios is the remedy. Sige, 5 more seconds for the others. Okay, sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So most of you got it correctly. It is not within any of the powers of the corporation, but it is not necessarily illegal, nor it will be considered automatically as contrary to morals, public policy, or good customs. Sabi natin again, ultra vires acts are not necessarily illegal, but illegal acts are automatically ultra vires. Yan ang ating statement kanina. Number 2, let me relaunch this poll for you. Ayan. So under the revised corporation code, a foreign corporation has the power and capacity to do all of the following except, ayan, in order to highlight natin yung amendment ng revised corpo code, lalo na dun sa mga sobrang affected ng pandemya with regards to the schedule of the board exams, na ang natutunan pa natin before was the old corpo code. Yan ang hirap kasi kaka-amend lang tapos covered kagad ng board exam. Sige, 10 more seconds for the others to answer. If you have questions, you can post it in the Q&A box or in the chat, although preferably sa Q&A para hindi siya matatabunan, just in case. Sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So most of you still got it correctly. That will be letter C. Under the revised corporation code, ang tinanggal lang doon sa prohibition on donations for political parties and activity will be a domestic corp, which means si domestic corp pwede na, pero si foreign corporation hindi pa rin pwede. Okay? O, ito na rin yung ating example or illustration kanina. para lang ma-highlight natin yung difference. Yeah. And eto lang, tinanong natin dito kasi hindi natin diniscuss kanina yung extent ng kanyang liability, which was argued by Dean Sundiang and Attorney Aquino in their book. Okay, sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. Actually, the correct answer here is letter D. Ayan, medyo konti lang. Kasi ito, hindi specifically provided, but the argument here of most of the experts in commercial law is that the extent of liability for Mr. X will only be up to his contributions because of the lack of knowledge with regards to the non-filing of the SEC or non-filing with the SEC of the articles. Ang premise dyan is that he has no personal hand in the illegality of the existence of the corporation. That's why even if there is no separate and juridical personality and he can be personally liable, his liability will be only up to the extent of his contribution because of his innocence with regards the circumstances that took place. Kaya again, number 4 will be letter D with regards the extent of the liability of Mr. X. And number 5, P-launch. There you go. So Mr. X invested his property in exchange for shares in ABC Corporation. Later on, the same property mortgaged as security for the loan of ABC Corporation from M-Bank. For failure to pay, the mortgage was foreclosed and proceeds were less than the amount of the outstanding balance of the loan, which M-Bank sought from Mr. X, contending that the property was invested by him. Mr. X cannot be made liable under which principle? Ayan. Ba, dito marami-raming distribution yung sagot, ha. Nagkakagulo na sila sa email. Sige, 5 more seconds for the others. Okay, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So most of you got it correctly. This will be corporate entity theory. Now, under, again, the corporate entity theory, there is a separate and distinct personality of the corporation. Kaya yung obligation being that of ABC Corporation, no? Dahil siya yung nangutang sa M-Bank. Even if the property that was mortgaged was originally invested by Mr. X, he cannot be made personally liable for the obligation of the corporation. No? Dahil invested na. Hindi na siya ang may-ari. And because ang obligation is that of the corporation. Piercing the veil will be used only whenever the doctrine of separate and juridical personality will be used for unlawful purposes. And limited liability principle will be applicable only in case of insolvency of the corporation itself. No? In this case, wala namang ganong instance. Ang nangyari lamang, no, is that diretsong siningil ng bangko yung kanyang what do you call this, yung stockholder ng corporation, which is odd din, no, in that particular instance. Anyway, so before we proceed with the organization and corporation of corporation, we'll take a short break, 10-minute break, and come back here later, no, for the continuation of our discussion. Sige, break muna tayo. Break. Kakasabay pa ng pindot. So, we are now on organization and incorporation of the corporation. Okay? So, promotional stage will be that stage na hindi pa na-issue ang certificate of incorporation ng corporation. No? Kaya nga in this stage, pinopromote pa lang. Supposedly, we have what you call the organizers or promoters who are inviting investors or potential investors in order to form the corporation. Pero syempre, being organizers, no? And since the corporation code requires na kunwari, kailangan na meron ka ng principal place of business na kailangan naka-indicate sa articles of incorporation na ipapasa mo, you'll have to enter into some contracts in behalf of the proposed corporation. And those contracts will be entered into by the organizers or promoters. So kunwari, they will enter into a contract of lease, no? Para makapag-rent ng isang area kung alin yung magiging principal place of business. Ang magiging lessee in the meantime will be the organizers or promoters. Take note, however, that with regards to their liability, although hindi pa ito natanong sa board, no? But malay mo, first time sa inyo. Okay? Technically speaking, the promoter will be personally liable for that particular contract that they entered into, particularly because they are the party, no, that entered into that contract in behalf of the corporation. And that liability will continue even if the corporation has already been formed unless there will be novation in the person of the promoter or organizer, or there is a stipulation in the contract that once the corporation is formed, then the corporation will be the party liable under the contract. No? Otherwise, kung wala yung kahit ano sa dalawang yan, the promoter or organizer may still be personally liable, being the party who actually entered into the contract. Ngayon, the process of incorporation will include the drafting of the articles, the supporting documents that will be necessary and required by the SEC to be submitted, and the subsequent issuance of the Certificate of Incorporation or Certificate of Registration by the SEC. So doon muna tayo sa Articles of Incorporation na part. Ano ba ang kailangan laman ng Articles of Incorporation? Of course, unang-una dyan yung pangalan. No? The name, the corporate name. Okay, the name by which the corporation will be known. So the name of the corporation will be necessary and essential to its existence because it will be under such name that it will act and perform all the legal acts that it may do. No? Each corporation then should have a name under which it can sue or it can be sued and do all legal acts. So the organizers must make sure that the name that they intend to use will not be similar or confusingly similar to any other corporate name that is already registered and protected by law, since the SEC would refuse registration of the same. Kaya nga procedurally, bago ka pa makapag-file ng Articles of Incorporation, magpapacheck ka muna ng pangalan with the SEC. They will run it through their database bago ka nila i-inform na pwede mong gamitin yung corporate name na yon because it is not similar or confusingly similar to an already existing corporation. Ano ngayon ang naging amendment dito ng Revised Corporation Code? Yung procedure na yun ng SEC, which is already existing even before the Revised Corporation Code, is now specifically included in the Corporation Code itself. So in-incorporate lang, no? But it is not technically a new rule. No? Dati na siyang rule na mag-apply ka muna for checking of the name. Ngayon lang, andito na siya sa Corporation Code itself. So aside from the name, you have to indicate also the purpose or purposes for which the corporation is being incorporated. Dito na rin natin nilalagay yung mga express powers, no? Such as adopting a corporate seal, transacting with regards properties, personal and real, or with regards the disposition of shares or subscription of the shares of stock, dito na natin i-indicate. Ngayon, however, there must be one primary purpose and all other purposes or powers for that matter of the corporation will be regarded as secondary purpose or secondary purposes. Wala nang tertiary purposes, no? Secondary purposes na lahat other than the primary. Ang limitation na dito with regards a non-stock corporation is that they cannot indicate purpose which would contradict or change its nature, no, as such non-stock corporation. So kung ikaw ay educational corporation na non-stock ang iyong setup, hindi ka pwedeng mag-indicate ng purpose or purposes na pang recreational club, no, kasi it would contradict your nature already as an educational corporation. So the statement of the purpose or object or the powers in the charter or in the articles of incorporation will result in defining the scope of authority, kasi nga ito yung tinatawag nating express powers indicated in the articles of incorporation. It will confer and also limit the actual authority of the corporate representatives. Importante din ito kasi pagdating sa mga stockholders, they will know what is the activity of the corporation that they are investing into or saan nila pinapasok yung kanilang pera. With regards to the directors and the management, it will serve as a direction as to what is the line of business that they can enter into or the transactions that they will be authorized to act in behalf of the corporation. And with regards all other persons who will deal with the company, they can ascertain whether the contract or the transaction is one that is within the authority of the management. Okay? Now, the secondary purposes, as we have mentioned, wala namang limitation as to the corporation code itself. However, if it has more than one purpose, then the primary purpose and the secondary ones must be specifically indicated, which will be your primary purpose and which are the secondary purposes. Gaano ito ka-importante? In one Court of Tax Appeals case, no, at least for one Court of Tax Appeals case, merong isang entity who receives royalties from us, an affiliate. Okay, wala siyang ibang activity other than holding intellectual property, particularly trademarks, na ginagamit ng kanyang affiliate kaya nagbabayad ng royalties. In that case, sabi ng Court of Tax Appeals, active income ang treatment doon sa royalties, no? Kasi daw yun ay nasa primary purpose ng kanyang articles. Kaya nagmamatter din, no? Because it will spell out the activity that the corporation will actually engage into. Very important din with regards to the purposes kasi nagmamatter whether there is, for example, a minimum ownership requirement. So if, for example, you will engage in activity for retail trade, no, the national nationalization of the retail trade will require that it is 100% Filipino-owned. No? So nagmamatter din with regards the minimum Filipino ownership requirement as to what activity you will be entering into. Take note, however, that the following will be the general limitations as to the purpose or purposes that a corporation may enter into. So number one, of course, it must be lawful. Okay? Kasi nga, being a mere creation of the law, no, it cannot engage in an activity that will be contrary to law, good customs, public moral, or public policy. Okay? It must be specific or stated concisely, although in broad or general terms, so as to expand kahit paano yung activity that they can enter into. And if there will be more than one purpose, sabi nga natin may isang primary purpose, all other purposes will be specified as secondary purposes. And they must be capable of being lawfully combined. So if, for example, your primary purpose will be to engage in banking activity, you will be prohibited by law to have insurance as a secondary purpose. And vice versa. Kung insurance ang primary purpose, hindi pwedeng banking because those are prohibited by law to be combined, no? Being industries that are separately regulated because they are imbued with public interest. Okay? Now, you're also required to indicate the principal place of the corporation, which must be within the Philippines. So it must be located within the Philippines and must not only specify the province but also the city or municipality where it will be located. Particularly important dahil sa requirement ng meetings, no? Lalo na pagdating sa ordinary stock corporation kasi yung principal place of business, yan na mismo yung venue ngayon under the revised corporation code. When it is not practical to have the stockholders meeting in the principal place, yung city or municipality where the principal place of office is located. No, yun ang kaya nagmamatter yung indication din ng city or municipality. So the importance of indicating the principal office is that it serves as the residence of the corporation. Kaya with regards to the venue of actions, under the rules of court, you can file your complaint either in the residence of the plaintiff or that of the defendant. So kung involved ang corporation sa kaso, yung residence will be the principal office of the corporation. Now, which will then also determine the proper venue of the action. It will also be important with regards to the registration of the chattel mortgage of shares because if the shares of stock of that corporation will be the subject of chattel mortgage, the registration of the affidavit of good faith will be with the chattel mortgage registry having jurisdiction over the principal office of the corporation. And also for purposes of determining the validity of the stockholders meetings. Kasi nga sabi natin, yung venue ng stockholders meetings is the principal place, if not practical, the city or municipality where it is located. At this point, I would like to emphasize that we are talking about one principal office only, not where the corporation primarily operates. No? So kung kunwari, ang principal office niya ay nasa Makati, pero ang kanyang planta ay nasa, let's say, Bulacan, at ang kanyang kinikater na mga customers ay nasa outside Metro Manila lahat, it doesn't matter yung place of operations, Makati, ang pinag-uusapan natin, the principal office, not the principal place of operation. Okay, magkaiba yon. So principal office yung importante na dapat nakalagay sa articles of incorporation. Now, you're also required to indicate the term for which the corporation will exist if it elected a term, no? And do away with the perpetual existence. Kasi now, under the revised corporation code, a corporation already has a perpetual existence and they removed already the limitation for which the corporation can exist, which previously was 50 years. No? Now, take note that this will also apply to already existing corporations automatically because under the transitory provisions of the revised corporation code, perpetual existence will cover already existing corporations, except if a majority of the stockholders would vote that they will retain the specific corporate term that they already have. No? But otherwise, if the problem that you will encounter in the board exam would be silent, we can presume that the corporation has perpetual existence. Ngayon, if there is a definite term that will be adopted by the corporation because the stockholders wants to, any extension that you will have to be filed not earlier than 3 years before that expiration date. No? Kasi ngayon, under the revised corporation code, although in-specify lang pero hindi naman bagong rule, pagdating ng definite term, no, indicated in the articles that you have adopted, automatically ma-dissolve na ang corporation without any other need or without any other act to be performed. Ipso facto or by operation of law, dissolve na ang corporation. Dati not earlier than 5 years. No? Ngayon, not earlier than 3 years na lang under the revised corporation code. Unless there will be justifiable reasons that you can provide the SEC to allow earlier extension, even before the 3-year period. Ngayon, Ang kakaiba lang din under the revised corporation code is may concept na ng revival. Dati, when the corporation's term is already expired, it is dissolved already, but if the stockholders would want to continue doing business with the same corporate structure, no? Andun pa rin yung assets, andun pa rin yung liabilities, they would have to reincorporate. No, kasi nga technically speaking namatay no yung corporation dahil nag-expire na yung term niya, kaya hindi mo siya pwedeng buhayin, kailangan mo pang i-reincorporate yung corporation. But under the corporation code now, they introduce the concept of revival, which literally no namatay ang corporation, you will be reviving it, kaya mas madali na no. Instead of reincorporating the already dead corporation, you will just file a petition for revival with the SEC, which will then approve it, and a new certificate of revival will be given, no, which will then provide the corporation perpetual existence, unless the application for revival that you have filed indicated a specific term again for which the corporation will exist. So again, as a general rule, perpetual existence na ang corporation, except if the stockholders would fix a term, in which case you have to file an extension not earlier than 3 years if you want to extend the term of such corporation. Once it is expired, however, you are allowed to file an application for revival. Now, you're also required to indicate details pertaining to the incorporators of the corporation, which will be their names, nationalities, and residences. Dati, importante yung residences kasi required na that a majority of them must be residents. Pero ngayon, required pa rin, pero hindi na required that majority of them are residents of the Philippines. So you have what you call corporators, which technically are stockholders who are composing the corporation at any given time that they own shares of stock. Who need not be the incorporators themselves. Unlike the incorporators, who are those that are mentioned in the articles originally forming the corporation and signatories of the articles. Kaya nga yung names ng incorporators, technically speaking, hindi isa sa mga bagay na pwede mong i-amend. No? Those are one of the things in the articles that you cannot amend because you cannot change the fact anymore that they are the ones who originally formed the corporation. No? So incorporators are original formers or stockholders, while corporators are those who are the current stockholders of the corporation. No? Kaya not all corporators are incorporators, but all incorporators at some point in time were corporators. No? But eventually, of course, they can leave, kaya hindi naman lagi silang corporators. At some point in time, they were all corporators also. So, yun nga, yung sinabi natin kanina. So, what will be the qualifications of incorporators? Before, ang requirement dapat national persons silang lahat, but now, they can also be partnerships, associations, or corporation. Or pwede na kahit juridical entities. No? Pwede nang maging incorporator ng corporation. Of legal age is still applicable with regards natural person incorporators. With regards partnerships and other juridical entities, they are duly registered with the SEC. Yun ang requirement no? ng Memorandum Circular 16-2019. Although, kapag tinignan mo kasi yung revised corporation code, wala na yung term na of legal age. I suppose practically dahil hindi na nga natural persons lang no ang pwede maging incorporators, kaya tinanggal lang ng Congress yung of legal age na words because they allow now the juridical entities to be incorporators as well, and wala namang legal age pagdating sa mga juridical persons no. But logically, the natural persons who are incorporators must be of legal age, di ba? Kasi if you cannot even validly enter into a contract if you are below 18 years old, what more na maging incorporator ka ng corporation, di ba? So applicable pa rin ang requirement na yan. Also, they must own or subscribe to at least one share. So kahit wala na yung 25-25 requirement, kailangan pa rin that they are subscribers to at least one share in order to be considered as incorporators. Dati, nire-require pa that majority are residents, pero again, tinanggal na ito under the revised corporation code. So kahit lahat ng incorporators are non-residents, it doesn't matter. Alright? Now, pagdating sa corporators, or yung tinatawag na nating stockholders, hindi naman required na natural persons lang. This can also be juridical entities who will be corporators or stockholders. Yun yung mga hindi naman original members. Hindi na required yung legal age kahit sa natural persons kasi merong mga minors na kahit minor pa ay tagapagmana na ng shares, pwede na yan. No? They can be corporators even if they are not of legal age. But of course, they must own at least one share in order to be considered a stockholder. Alright? So, yung of legal age hindi naman required pagdating sa stockholders. Now, You're also required to indicate the numbers of the directors or trustees which shall not be less than 5 nor more than 15 sa lumang corporation code. Yung tama, nandiyan na sa handout nyo. No? So directors will be those that will be governing the stock corporations which should not exceed 15. Yan na ngayon ang number. Wala nang minimum. No, to pave the way for one-person corporation. Kasi tinanggal na rin yung minimum 5 pagdating sa incorporators. So kung may isang, pwede bang isa ka lang na incorporator? Yes, kasi meron na tayong one-person corporation. Pwede bang dalawa lang po kami ng asawa ko or dalawa lang kami ng jowa ko na maging incorporator? Pwede. No? Pwede po bang tatlo kami kasama ang kabit niya? Pwede. Pwede po bang apat kami kasama ang kabit ko? Pwede. O di ba ang saya ng corporation nyo? No? Four-way relationship. So pwede na. No? Kasi unlike before, in the corporation code, before the amendment, there was a minimum of 5 incorporators. So it follows that dahil wala ng minimum number of incorporators, wala na ring minimum number of directors. Kasi 'di ba, kung dalawa lang kayo na director, dalawa lang kayo incorporator, tatlo lang kayo incorporators, apat lang kayo incorporators, paano kayo bubuo ng 5 director? 'Di ba? Kasi required din that you own at least or subscribe to at least 1 share in order to be a director or a member in order to be a trustee. Kaya wala na yung minimum pagdating sa directors. Maximum number lang is that they cannot exceed 15. With regards to the non-stock corporations, we have what you call trustees where the number may exceed 15. So practically speaking, no, walang minimum, wala ring maximum pagdating sa trustees. Kasi yan lang ang wording ng Corporation Code as amended, that the number of trustees may exceed 15, unlike directors, which cannot exceed 15. All right? Now, take note, however, that under the revised Corporation Code, a corporation vested with public interest will be required to have 20% of its board of directors to be independent directors. Ano ba itong corporations vested with public interest? Those that will be covered by the SRC, yung mga tinatawag mong publicly listed or public corporation dahil merong 100 stockholders or 200 stockholders holding at least 100 shares. So kahit hindi listed, they will be covered by the SRC as well, and an asset of at least 50 million pesos. Those which are imbued with public interest, so banks and quasi-banks, non-stock, savings and loans associations, pawn shops, corporation engaged in money service, business, pre-need, trust and insurance companies, and other financial intermediaries. So involved ang pera, no, sa kanilang mga transaction. That's why they are regulated, okay, either by the BSP or by the Insurance Commission dahil they are imbued with public interest. And any other corporation engaged in a business vested with public interest as may be determined by the SEC. Take note, however, that under the revised Code of Corporate Governance, meron na dating requirement nito. No, yun nga lang nakakalito kasi ang term na ginagamit dati is that they must have at least 20% but not less than or 2 whichever is lower but not more than 2. Kaya technically speaking, lahat ng instances dati ng directors, laging 2 ang independent directors mo. No? Kasi kung kunwari 5 ang directors, 1 ang 20%, 2 whichever is lower but always 2. Diba? So kung 10, 2, 2, 2. Kung 15, 3 ito, 2 but not more than 2. Diba? So laging 2 naman. Kaya ngayon maganda rin na clarify na at least 20% lang ang nakalagay but only for corporations vested with public interest. So ano yung independent directors? Ginaya lang din yung definition that is already in the revised Code of Corporate Governance, which will be those who has no pecuniary interest with the business other than his own shares of stock. No? Wala siyang kahit anong relationship with the corporation that is of pecuniary nature or may perang involved, no, that would affect his management, no, or independent judgment with regards to his responsibilities as a director. So medyo subjective lang yung definition, pero supposedly wala siyang other involvement other than the shares of stock that he owns in the corporation that qualifies him as a director. Okay, now, also, a required statement that must be indicated in the articles will be the names, nationalities, residences of the initial directors and trustees that will be holding those positions until the regular directors or trustees has already been elected and qualified. Yeah, now, in case also of a stock corporation, you will be required to indicate the amount of the authorized capital stock, the number of shares which it will be divided into, and their par value, as well as the details pertaining to the subscribers or the fact that your shares of stocks are without par value if it is applicable. It is also optional that with regards to the no par value shares, you may also indicate the stated value or the issue price, pero hindi required. No? Kasi the issue price or the stated value may also be fixed by the stockholders even after after incorporation. So ang required lang na indicated in the articles will be the fact that you have no par value shares, no? Kung sakaling meron. Yun lang ang required. Hindi required na indicate yung issue price or stated value, unlike si par value required na kailangang naka-indicate. Okay? Now, you're also required to take note, however, yun nga sabi natin kanina, that the 25-25 requirement or that 25% of the authorized capital stock must be subscribed or at least 25% of the subscription must be paid up has already been removed, which means that there is no more minimum capitalization requirement under the corporation code. No? Wala na sa corporation code na minimum. Dati, 5,000 ang minimum, following 25-25, then minimum 5,000 ang paid up capital. Ngayon, wala na. Take note, however, that with regards the increase in authorized capital stock, required pa rin that at least 25% of that increase must be subscribed and at least 25% of that subscription must be paid up, no? In case of increase in authorized capital stock. So, yung capital stock natin, yung authorized capital stock will be the maximum amount fixed in the articles that may be subscribed, paid in, or secured to be paid by the subscribers, or it can also refer to the number of shares, the maximum number of shares that can be issued by the corporation. You also have what you call subscribed capital stock, which as the name would suggest, is already covered by a subscription contract or a portion of which has already been paid or payable, no? Or meron kang tinatawag na subscription receivable from the subscribers, because they are already covered by a subscription contract. And you have paid up capital stock, which as the name would suggest has already been fully paid, no, by the subscribers. Okay, nabayaran na, kaya nga paid up ang tawag natin. Okay, now, considerations for stock under the corporation code may include cash that will be paid to the corporation, property that will be invested in the corporation itself, that will be used by the corporation also. No, the fair valuation will be equal to the par or issued value of the stocks that will be issued in exchange for that particular property. It can also be labor that was already performed or rendered to the corporation. It cannot be for future labor that will be performed. Dapat na-perform na. No? Kaya merong utang ang corporation na babayaran at ang pinambayad niya ay shares of stock. Or previously incurred indebtedness, hindi pwedeng future indebtedness, dapat already incurred. And amounts that will be transferred from unrestricted retained earnings to stated or paid up capital. And outstanding shares exchanged for shares of stock in the event of reclassification or conversion. Now, take note, under the corporation code, you can also have the following considerations for stock, shares of stock in another corporation, or other generally accepted forms of consideration. Take note, however, that a stock can never be issued for less than its par or issued price. Otherwise, this will result in what we call watered stock, which we will discuss later as to who will be liable for the difference in case the stocks are issued below the par or issue price of the shares. And promissory notes or future services, as we have mentioned, cannot be considered valid consideration. Kasi yung nakalagay sa code, dapat previously incurred indebtedness or services that have already been rendered or performed. No, hindi pwedeng for future services or future indebtedness. Now, the outstanding capital stock of the corporation then will be the number of shares that are already issued or yung tinatawag nga nating paid up capital stock plus the subscribed capital stock less any treasury shares. Kasi yung outstanding capital stock natin, yan din ang nagiging basis for the voting requirements for the dividend distribution. Kaya sinasama natin kahit yung subscribed because they are technically entitled already to the rights of a stockholder except only the issuance of certificates of stock. Pero tinatanggal natin yung treasury shares because they are owned or in the name of the corporation itself. No? Kaya hindi yan nakakaboto, hindi rin yan nakaka-receive ng dividends. So again, issued plus subscribed less treasury shares ang magiging outstanding capital stock. Other contents of the articles of incorporation with regards to a non-stock corporation will be the details pertaining to the initial contributors or yung counterpart ng incorporators and the amount that they contributed and such other matters which will not be inconsistent with the law and which the incorporators may deem necessary and convenient. One such example of other matters that may be indicated will be any restriction and preference with regards to the shares of stock or their transfer. No? So if it is a stock corporation, you are required to indicate. So pag stock corporation, kailangan naka-indicate sa articles and sa certificate of stock yung restriction or preference in order to be validly binding. No? Otherwise, kung nasa articles lang pero wala sa certificate, ang treatment natin dyan, ordinary shares, no? Which will not be subject to any restriction and or preferences. But with regards closed corporations, not only in the articles and in the certificate of sale, but also in the bylaws. You have to indicate the restrictions and or preferences in order to be binding. So again, mawala lang isa dyan, hindi na binding yung restriction and preference. Kaya you will notice in either instance, whether an ordinary stock corporation or a closed corporation, dapat nasa articles yung restriction and preference. Kaya nga, yan yung isang other matter that may be indicated in the articles of incorporation also. So other matters pa rin that may be included will be the name of the treasurer duly elected by the subscribers, the no transfer clause in case there is a minimum Filipino ownership requirement required na magkaroon ng no transfer clause. Basically, this is a provision which is an undertaking on the part of the current stockholders that they will not transfer the shares to non-Filipinos that will make the ownership of the corporation below the minimum Filipino ownership requirement. So nagiging limitation yan as to the transfer of shares of stock. Also indicated will be the execution clause where the names of the incorporators will be indicated and their signature will also be placed. And of course, the notarial acknowledgement. No? Kasi kailangan notarize yung articles bago pa yan i-file with the SEC. Okay, so amendments that were introduced, or an amendment rather, introduced by the revised corporation code will be the requirement of a favorable recommendation coming from the concerned government agency. So kung kunwari pag bangko, dapat meron pang favorable recommendation from the BSP. Kung insurance, may favorable recommendation coming from the insurance commissioner, no? Or insurance commission for that matter. Pero hindi na yan or applicable na rin yung requirement na yan with regards sa non-stock savings and loans association and also with regards pawn shops. Pero tinanggal naman yung requirement na yan pagdating sa educational institution. Dati ang wording pa is that the favorable recommendation must come from the Ministry of Education. Diyan mo makikita na ganun kaluma yung corporation code. No? And other corporations that will be governed by special laws, hindi na rin kailangan ng favorable recommendation coming from the concerned government agency. Okay. Now, amendments of the Articles of Incorporation would generally require the majority approval of the board as well as a written assent of the stockholders representing 2/3 of the outstanding stocks and the approval of the SEC. Take note, however, that once you filed the Articles of Incorporation's amendments and it is not acted upon within 6 months by the SEC, it will be deemed approved already. Deemed approved already. So, ganyan ang mga requirements for purposes of amending the Articles of Incorporation. Okay? So, let's take this particular poll questions in relation to what we have covered. So, under the revised corporation code, a corporation has blank with regards its existence. Yan, the term of existence of a corporation. Okay, so yeah, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. Ayan. So most of you got it correctly. Again, by default, perpetual existence na unless the stockholders would adopt a particular term that will be indicated in the Articles of Incorporation. In which case, the renewal will not be earlier than 3 years as amended by the revised Corporation Code. Number 7. So which of the following is not a requirement or still rather a requirement that applies to incorporators under the revised Corporation Code? Diba? Yun yung mga nakakalito, yung mga amendments, lalo na when you encounter the Corporation Code pa before the revised Corporation Code. Meron kasi board meeting ngayon, tapos may paper na ipe-present, nire-require nila akong pumasok sa meeting. Okay, sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So most of you still got it correctly. No, this will be letter C. With regards natural persons under the SEC Memorandum Circular, they are still required to be natural persons. Okay, requirement pa rin yan. Pero yung majority as residents, tinanggal na under the revised Corporation Code, and juridical entities or persons are now allowed to be incorporators as well. Number 8, ayan. So A, B, C, D, and E form the corporation whose authorized capital stock is 64,000. How much will be the minimum paid-up capital requirement under the revised corporation code for the corporation to incorporate? Ayan. Ito yung mga may tanong na ano eh. Kapag may ganyan sa choices na zero, napapraning lahat. Diba parang, naku, baka may twist to. Sige, 5 more seconds for the others to answer. While I join in the Zoom meeting of the Board of Directors. Okay, sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So zero, no? Kasi nga sabi natin wala nang minimum paid up capital requirement ngayon, no? Although there will be some paid up capital that will be paid prior to incorporation, no? Or kahit wala, actually pwede naman na kasi subscription lang ang requirement, no? Pero wala nang minimum paid up capital requirement. Kaya the best answer here will be zero. If it were prior to the revised corporation code, this would have been 5,000 kasi 64,000, so you have 32, 16,000 as the minimum paid minimum subscription, 4,000 as the minimum paid up capital, pero hindi kasi pwedeng less than 4 or less than 5,000. Kaya kung prior to the revised corporation code, the answer here would have been letter C. Okay? Now, number 9. A restriction as to the transfer of shares in an ordinary stock corporation must be indicated in 1 articles, 2 bylaws, 3 certificate of stock in order to be binding. Yan ang requirement na yan. In order to be binding, saan dapat nakalagay yung restriction, or in the same vein with regards to the preferences, no? Saan dapat ba ini-indicate? Okay? Sige, I'll give 5 more seconds for the others to answer. Okay, sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So most of you still got it correctly. That will be letter C, 1 and 3 only, no? Pag closed corporation, yun lang yung magre-require na sa lahat, 1, 2, and 3. Pero pag ordinary stock corporation, articles and certificate of stock lang required i-indicate yung mga restrictions and or preferences. And number 10, the existence of a corporation sole will begin from, that pala to sa kabila pang topic. Sa kabila pang topic dapat. Okay, sige, let me end the poll there and share with you the results. So, ayan, most of you got it correctly pa rin. That will be filing of the verified articles of incorporation. And again, a corporation sole, even before the revised corporation code, has perpetual existence already. All right? So, number 10 will be letter B. Okay, so now we go to the Board of Directors. Saktong-sakto, meron akong meeting with our Board of Directors. So, we continue muna habang hindi pa ako tinatawag. I know, waiting ako sa Zoom meeting with my phone. All right. So, Board of Directors, as we have mentioned earlier, will be the supreme authority in matters of management with regards to the regular and ordinary business affairs of the corporation. Kaya nga, as compared to a partnership that we have discussed last meeting, no, while the partners may directly transact in behalf of the partnership, sa corporation, hindi pwedeng stockholders ang diretsyong nagtatransact kasi nga merong Board of Directors that will manage the affairs of the corporation. Okay, so the authority, however, of the board will be limited to the regular and ordinary business affairs and will not extend to material changes or fundamental alterations of the corporate charter. So if you will make amendments to the articles or to the bylaws, the stockholders' consent must still be obtained in order for those changes to validly take effect. Okay. Now, the corporation's board of directors' powers may be classified into those which are expressly conferred, which may be indicated in the articles or in the bylaws of the corporation, or by any official act of the board of directors. It can also cover those which will be incidental thereto, which can be reasonably and necessary to carry out the purposes of the corporation's existence, or which can be inherent or go with its office already. No? So kung kunwari ikaw ay corporate officer like a chief finance officer. So it follows syempre that everything related to finance will be inherent in your position. Or that may be apparent, particularly kung ang katransact naman niya ay hindi knowledgeable with regards the actual extent of authority, but with regards the title of the corporate officer or director that they are transacting with, it appears from that they have authority to enter into the contract, magiging binding din yan sa corporation. Or those that may arise from customs, usage, or by emergency. Now, the qualifications of a director may be indicated in the bylaws as well as the disqualifications. In fact, dyan talaga yan yung marami. However, the minimum qualifications and disqualifications under the corporation code may not be removed or disregarded by the corporation. So, with regards qualification, isa na lang ang requirement ngayon, they must own at least one share. In fact, if a director would cease to be the owner of at least one share or the trustee ceases to be a member, then they will also cease to become a director or trustee automatically. Before the amendment of the revised corporation code, ang requirement also is that majority of them must be residents of the Philippines. Pero tinanggal na ang requirement na yan. Kasi logical lang dahil tinanggal na rin yan as a requirement for incorporators, so it follows na hindi na rin yan required with regards the directors. As to the disqualifications, however, under the corporation code, they will be disqualified from becoming a director or a trustee if within 5 years prior to the election or their appointment as director or trustee, they were already convicted by final judgment of an offense punishable for a period exceeding 1 year. So dapat yan 6 years and 1 day ang iyong imprisonment. So pagkatapos mong iserve yung 6 years and 1 day imprisonment or more, within a 5-year period from service of that punishment, hindi ka pa pwedeng maging director. Pero after the 5 years, pwede na ulit. Or if there is any violation of the corporation code or that of the securities regulation code. Dinagdag lang yung securities regulation code ng revised corporation code. Dati wala yan. So in all those instances, after you have served the penalty, within a 5-year period, hindi ka pa pwedeng maging director. Pero after the 5-year period, pwede na ulit. Okay. Also, a disqualification introduced by the revised corporation code will be any offense for which you were found guilty or administratively liable that involves a fraudulent act. So medyo broad yung term na yan. Okay. So even if there was no conviction or criminal liability, even if administrative lang ang liable or liability mo, you will also be disqualified. What's odd here, however, is that kung criminal liability ang nag-attach sa iyo, 5 years lang hihintayin mo after you have served the punishment, you may be a director already. But if it is administrative liability related to fraudulent acts, apparently perpetual ang disqualification. Kasi wala yung resting period na 5 years, hindi nag-a-apply or kinover ng hiwalay na paragraph itong fraudulent acts. Okay? Also, a disqualification introduced by the revised corporation code will be any violation that will be similar to the disqualifications that we have mentioned, pero foreign court or equivalent foreign regulatory authority to the SEC ang nag-convict sa iyo, or nagbigay ng judgment. So kahit sa ibang bansa ka na found guilty for a similar act that is punishable here, then ganon din ang magiging effect as to your disqualification from becoming a director. Okay? And yun nga sabi natin, the bylaws may provide for other disqualifications. Like for example, if you have a competing interest or a conflict of interest, which San Miguel did before, San Miguel Corporation, when one of the major stockholders of Asia Brewery obtained shares of stock of San Miguel Corporation, they indicated in the bylaws that you cannot be a director if you have conflicting interest. So apparently conflict of interest is not by default a disqualification, but they indicated it in the bylaws and the Supreme Court upheld the validity of such disqualification because they are free to provide disqualifications other than those indicated in the corporation code. Yung iba nga nagpo-provide pa ng educational background, a certain specialization in order to become a director, and they will be valid qualifications and disqualifications as long as they are indicated in the bylaws. Okay. Now, the election of the members of the board will require a majority of the outstanding capital stock in order to have a quorum. Kung walang majority ng capital stock, walang magiging valid meeting, then wala ring magiging valid election in relation to such meeting. In the case of a non-stock corporation, ang requirement natin, of course, will be majority of the members entitled to vote. Now, once there is a quorum or a majority of the outstanding capital stock, magbobotohan na ngayon ang mga present in that particular meeting. by ballot only if it is requested by a stockholder or a member. Otherwise, kung wala namang request, pwede nang viva voce or palakasan na lang ng boses, literally, no? Na mag-yay, nay, ganun na lang ang sinasabi in order for the election to happen. And walang minimum vote required, no? As long as there is the top 5, kung kunwari 5 directors ang i-elect mo, 10 directors ang i-elect mo, as long as they obtain the highest number of votes, they will be elected as members of the board already. No? Walang minimum vote required na dapat at least 25%, at least majority, walang ganun. Basta yung highest number of votes will be elected as the members of the board of directors or trustees. Now, take note, however, that the revised corporation code provided a reporting requirement in relation to the election of directors. So in the event that there is non-holding of the elections or hindi nangyari, they have to provide a report with the SEC within a period of 30 days, which will include a new date on when the election will be held, no, which will not be later than 60 days from the scheduled date. If no new date is designated in such report or notice provided with the SEC, or the scheduled election date was likewise not held, then the SEC may, upon application of any stockholder, member, director, or trustee, order that an election will be held. No? So sila na ang mag-order. Another reporting requirement is that if there will be any vacancy in the board of directors, kailangan din niyang i-report to the SEC, particularly if the reason for the vacancy will be death, resignation, or any other manner, no, for which the director ceased to hold office. You have to report to the SEC such vacancy within a period of 7 days from knowledge of that particular vacancy. Now, the method of voting can either be straight voting, very straightforward. Kung gaano karami ang shares of stock na meron ka, ganoon din karami yung votes na meron ka. So if you have 1,000 shares, 1,000 votes ang meron ka. Pero meron tayong tinatawag pagdating sa ordinary stock corporation, by default, they are allowed to also have cumulative voting. So in cumulative voting, the number of votes that you have will be equivalent to the number of shares that you have multiplied by the number of directors or trustees to be, or number of directors to be elected. No? So kung you have 1,000 shares and you will elect 5 directors, you will get 5,000 votes. You can either consolidate all the votes into one candidate, in which case you call it cumulative voting for one candidate, or distribute the votes to as many candidates as you want, in which case we call it cumulative voting by distribution. Ginagawa ito with regards to an ordinary stock corporation, by default, allowed yan. No? Hindi katulad pag non-stock corporation, as a general rule, hindi allowed ang cumulative voting unless it will be authorized under the articles or in the bylaws. Kasi sa non-stock corporation, generally speaking, each member gets 1 vote. No? Kaya hindi na kailangan yung cumulative voting kasi wala namang majority stockholder na tinatawag dahil equal ang kanilang voting rights for each member. No? Kasi ang purpose why we have cumulative voting is to allow the minority to have a rightful representation in the board of directors. So even if they are minority stockholders, their votes will be multiplied by the number of directors to be elected, and they can combine their cumulative votes to at least have 1 director that will represent them in the board of directors. No? Yan ang purpose. Kaya hindi yan applicable pagdating sa non-stock kasi nga wala namang majority stock, wala namang majority member, di ba? Wala namang member sa non-stock corporation at 50% ang ownership, 70% ang ownership kasi nga each member gets 1 vote, generally speaking. No? Kaya hindi nag-a-apply as a general rule yung cumulative voting sa non-stock. Pero sa ordinary stock corporations, cumulative voting is generally allowed. Alright? Now, directors may be removed as such directors. Ang requirement lang dito is that if the director represents the minority, they can be removed only if there is a just and lawful cause. That is indicated also in the bylaws. Pero if it is not a minority director or a director not representing the minority, they can be removed even without a just or lawful cause. So yan lang ang pinagkaiba. The law requires that there must be a cause for the director representing the minority to be validly removed. And take note now that the SEC is empowered under the revised corporation code to motu proprio. No? Hindi na kailangan pa ng complaint, hindi na kailangan maghintay pa na merong mag-apply or mag-file ng complaint. The SEC by itself, after due notice and hearing, ordered the removal of a director or trustee. No? Despite the disqualification, they were elected or whose disqualification arose or was discovered subsequent to the election. Pwede na nilang i-order yung pagtanggal ng director or trustee even without a complaint or acting by itself lamang. Okay? So the requirements in case of a valid removal that will be initiated by the stockholders is that there must be a general or special meeting that is duly called for that purpose to remove the director. Okay? The requirement here is that the vote to remove the director must be 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock or members that are entitled to vote. In case of stock corporations, 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock, 2/3 of the members in case of non-stock corporation. And with regards to the meeting, there must have been a previous notice to the stockholders or members that the meeting will have as part of its agenda the removal of the director or trustee. Now, hindi pwedeng surprise, ganito ang meeting natin, tatanggalin natin si director, dapat naka-indicate na part ng magiging meeting yung pag-remove sa kanya. Okay? Now, in case of vacancies of the board of directors or trustees, the ones who will fill up the vacancy in case of removal will be the stockholders themselves within the same meeting authorizing such removal. In case, however, of expiration of the term, the stockholders will also be the one to fill up the vacancy. The requirement now of the revised corporation code, however, is that the replacement has to be elected not later than the expiration of the term of such director. Now, for all other causes, whether by death, resignation, or abandonment, the board will be the one to elect the replacement in case that they still constitute a quorum. But if they no longer constitute a quorum, the stockholders will be the one to fill up such vacancies. The period provided under the revised corporation code is that the vacancy must be filled up not later than 45 days from the time that the vacancy arose. In case, however, that there is increase in the number of the directors, kaya merong vacancy, the stockholders will also be the one to fill up such vacancy in the same meeting authorizing the increase. Dapat yan. Authorizing the increase. Kasi increase in the number of directors would necessitate amendment of the articles, which will require the concurrence of the stockholders. So sa meeting, when the stockholders' concurrence were obtained, mag-e-elect na rin sila kung sino yung mag-fill up ng empty seats with regards the increase in the number of directors. So yan. Ang bago lang naman sa revised corporation code dito, itong last column natin, which will be when the election will be held, kasi yan lang ang dinagdag. All others as to who will fill up the vacancy is the same rule, even before the amendment of the revised corporation code. Now, with regards sa holdover director, however, dito sa kasong ito, may isang director whose term already expired. Pero since there was no election that elected a replacement for him, he continued to be a director in a holdover capacity. Eventually, however, he resigned habang wala pa ring election for his replacement, and the director still continued to constitute a quorum, even after his resignation. Ngayon, ang pinaglalabanan nila, sino mag-fill up ng vacancy? Kasi if we go with the expiration of the term, the stockholders will be the one to fill up the vacancy. Pero if we go with the resignation, it will be the board because they still constitute a quorum. Sabi ng Supreme Court dito, it will be the stockholders because the cause of the vacancy really was the expiration of the term. If resignation will be the cause of the vacancy, it should be resignation before the expiration of the term. So dahil originally expired naman na ang term, noong time na nag-resign si director, it will be the stockholders who will fill up the vacancy because the director was only resigning from his capacity as a holdover director habang naghihintay lang ng replacement. So that's one specific case lang that was never asked pa in the board exam. Okay? Ngayon, also, the Corporation Code introduced the concept of an emergency board of directors. In case that there will be a vacancy and there is no longer a quorum on the board of directors, but there is an emergency action that will be required to be addressed because it has to prevent a grave, substantial, or irreparable loss or damage to the corporation, then an emergency board may be constituted. Paano ngayon tino-form ito? Yung vacancies in the board of directors may be temporarily filled by the corporate officers by unanimous vote of the remaining directors or trustees. So kung kunwari, 7 ang members of the board mo, 3 na lang ang natitira, so wala silang quorum, okay? The remaining 3 directors can elect a temporary director from the corporate officers only. So corporate secretary, CFO, okay? Chief Information Officer, Chief Risk Officer, Compliance Officer, yan lang ang mga pwede mong pagpilian. Hindi pwedeng kahit sino lang, corporate officers lang. And the required vote in order to validly make them temporary members of the board will be unanimous. So since 3 ang directors, 3 votes din ang magiging required for them to temporarily take office. Okay? Now, the action of those directors that are temporarily designated as such will be limited only to the emergency action necessary. And once the emergency has already ceased, or a replacement director has already been elected, then the corporate officer holding temporarily position in the board of directors will cease to be a director already. No? Kaya ganun lang ka-temporary. In the meantime lang, that there is a need to address an emergency, which is good actually, no? Kasi imagine if there's no quorum, the directors really cannot validly come up with any valid resolution because they cannot even have a valid meeting. No? And kung emergency nga naman, alangan namang ipatawag mo pa yung lahat ng stockholders para mag-elect pa ng directors, no? Kung kailangan ng i-address. So this is actually a good amendment introduced by the revised corporation code. So may requirement lang ng notice that you have to notify the SEC within 3 days from the time that the emergency board was created. So to give you an illustration, there are 9 members of the board. Yan. Okay, if only one of them say E is removed by vote of the stockholders, then the replacement will be done by the stockholders, even if the board still has a quorum. Kasi removal ang cause. No? If F's term expired, the stockholders again will be the one to fill up the vacancy kahit pa may quorum sila because again, the cause of the vacancy is expiration of the term. If however A resigned and B died, no, the remaining director still constituting a quorum will be the one to replace. Kasi hindi naman removal, hindi rin expiration ng term ang cause ng vacancy. So since there is still a quorum on the members of the board, then they can validly elect the replacement for A and B. Okay? Or A, B, and C for that matter. Now, as a general rule, directors do not receive any compensation. Now, sabi sa isang libro, sabi ng stockholders, the success of the corporation itself must be compensation enough. No? Kasi nga daw, sila ang nagmamanage, sila rin naman ang makikinabang kung sakaling mag-succeed ang corporation. Kaya hindi na sila kailangan pang pasahurin. Pero of course, alam naman natin sa totoong buhay, hindi yan totoo. Tumatanggap na compensation ng directors. In fact, napakalaki na sinusweldo ng mga director ng corporation. So what are the exceptions to the general rule, or what are the instances that the directors can receive compensation? This will include number 1, the receipt of reasonable per dimes with regards to the attendance in meetings. No? So monthly meetings ng directors, every time they attend a meeting, they will be entitled to per dime. What is reasonable is a question of fact that will be dependent on certain circumstances. So may mga corporation, ang reasonable per dime nila 1,000 lang. No, merong reasonable per dime ng iba 3,000 per meeting, yung iba as much as 20, as much as 50,000 pesos per meeting. Imagine, isang araw mo lang yun, no? 50 mil, 20 mil na ang sasahurin mo dahil lang umattend ka ng meeting. No? Yan yung mga reasonable per dimes. Now also, they can receive compensation if it is provided for in the bylaws or if there is a majority vote of the stockholders granting them compensation. Now, or if they perform any other functions other than that of a director. So, kung kunwari director siya, pero presidente din siya ng corporation or a corporate officer, pwede siyang sumweldo sa kanyang capacity as a corporate officer. No? Hindi naman siya pinapasahod as a director. Pinapasahod in his capacity as a corporate officer. Allowed yan. No? Now, take note, however, that with regards the first 3, no, yung reasonable per dime provided in the bylaws and majority vote of the stockholders, they cannot exceed 10% of the net income before tax of the corporation during the preceding year. Now, so hindi, may limitation lang as to the amount that they can receive. Okay? Now, as ang amendment lang din na inintroduce dito ng revised corporation code is that the directors cannot actively participate in the fixing of their compensation. Yun lang ang naging limitation and the requirement of an annual report as to the compensation received by the directors, pero hindi siya actually bago. Nasa revised code of corporate governance na siya before, in-incorporate lang ngayon sa corporation code, no, as amended by the revised corporation code. So before we go to the duty of loyalty of the directors with regards 4 doctrines that we will be discussing here, we will take a short break first. Okay? So, to continue again with regards to the duty of loyalty of a director, papasok ko dito 4 na concept. No? So the first one will be the corporate opportunity doctrine. Under this particular doctrine, particularly previously section 31, no, if a director will be in a position with regards a corporate or an opportunity that in all fairness should rightfully belong to the corporation, dapat mag-giveaway siya. No? Kung may na-encounter siyang business opportunity na pwede ito sa corporation ko, kailangan ibigay niya doon sa corporation na yun. No? And he must not obtain the business opportunity for himself. Otherwise, he will be liable to account for the profits that he will obtain from that particular business opportunity, except if it will be ratified by 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. In which case, pwede na niyang i-keep yung profits that he will obtain. No? But again, as a general rule, hindi pwede. Kaya kung iti-take niya for himself yung opportunity, then he will be liable for the profits that he will be deriving. Okay? Now, kaakibat niyan will be or to give an illustration, sige, para we can visualize it properly. So A, B, C, D, and E are directors of Realty Corporation, a corporation engaged in the real estate business. Ngayon itong si Z wanted to sell his property with a fair market value of 100 million for 90 million pesos only. So automatically may discount ng 10 million. No? Ito bang business opportunity na to can belong to the corporation? Yes, because it is engaged in the real estate business. Malaki-laking tipid yung 10 million pesos kagad, no, in the acquisition of the property. Kung sakaling yan, ay offer kay A, which is a director. So he encountered now a business opportunity, which in all fairness may rightfully belong to the corporation. Dapat ibigay niya sa corporation. But if he takes it for himself then and made a profit, then he will be liable for the profits that he will be deriving from such and give it to the corporation unless, as we have mentioned, 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock will ratify his act. In which case, he may keep the profits already. Kasi sa kanya binigay yung opportunity, pero dahil related sa corporation niya, as a director with a fiduciary duty, dapat ibigay niya yung opportunity na yan sa corporation to which he is a director. No? Ngayon, meron naman din tayong tinatawag na acquiring adverse interest on a matter reposed in him in confidence. In cooperatives, meron din ganito, ang tawag lang ay legal use of confidential information. So, kaakibat or related din sa business opportunity, no? Pero ang pinagkaiba dito, yung business opportunity nalaman ng director because he is a director. Ibig sabihin, the business opportunity was first given to the corporation itself, pero dahil nalaman niya, he now took adverse interest in the sense that he took the opportunity for himself to the damage of the corporation itself. So unlike the corporate opportunity doctrine, dito walang concept ng ratification. So to give you an illustration, in a similar example that we have earlier, instead of offering it first to A, in-offer ni Z yung pagbebenta ng lupa sa korporasyon. So dahil director itong si A, nalaman niya yung business opportunity na meron sa pagbebenta ni Z ng lupa, at pinuntahan niya ngayon si Z, no, who offered to buy it for 95 instead of 90 million, to which Z agreed. So ang nangyari tuloy dito, may sulutan. No? So dahil unang binigay kay corporation yung business opportunity, pero sinulot ng director to think na nalaman lang niya yung business opportunity because of his fiduciary position as a director, then he will be liable to account for the profits without any ratification coming from the stockholders. Hindi katulad sa corporate opportunity doctrine, si director ang unang naka-encounter ng business opportunity, pwede pang i-ratify ng stockholders. Pero pag dito, hindi na pwedeng i-ratify. Automatically, he will be liable to account for any profit that he will be deriving by the illegal use of the confidential information. So yun, dalawang concept natin with regards the duty of loyalty. The third will be with regards to self-dealing director. As the name would suggest, a self-dealing director is a director who transacts with his own corporation. No? So director siya rin yung party to the transaction. The other party to the transaction is the corporation to which he is a director. No? So as a general rule, the law would treat the transaction as voidable in character at the option of the corporation. Bakit? Kasi kung ikaw ay director ng isang corporation at kayong dalawa ng corporation mo ang magka-transact, the natural tendency for the director is to make the terms of the contract more favorable to him. Diba? Kasi kung siya ang kikita, kita niya na kagad. Kung ang corporation ang kikita, hihintayin niya pang mag-declare ng dividends bago mag-translate to actual income of the director. Kaya ang tendency tuloy is that the director will make the terms of the contract more favorable to him. That's why the law would treat the transaction generally as voidable at the option of the corporation. Nevertheless, there are 3 exceptions to that rule, no? In which case the transaction will be regarded as valid instead of voidable. First is when the following are present. Tatlo itong requirements na ito. Number 1, the presence of the director will not be necessary in order to constitute a quorum. And his vote will not be required to approve the transaction. Ang idea lang naman dito, whether nandun siya or bumoto siya, it doesn't matter. The transaction would still have been approved. Kaya yung tendency na mag-take advantage sa position niya as a director will be negated already. Kaya nagiging valid na. And lastly, that the contract is considered fair and reasonable under the circumstances. Yung pangatlo yan, yung pangatlong requirement na yan lang ang hindi nawawala sa lahat ng exceptions natin. Now, take note however that with regards to the vote required, if it is a corporation vested with public interest, dalawa ang requirement for a valid vote, no, na walang involvement si director. Number 1, dapat ang at least 2/3 of the entire membership of the board, not just those who are present. So kung 9 ang directors mo, 6 ang present sa meeting, dapat 6 din ang mag-approve ng transaction ng self-dealing director. Pangalawa, majority of the independent directors must be obtained as well. So yan ang dalawang requirement for a valid vote in case of a transaction of a self-dealing director in corporations vested with public interest. Ngayon, paano kung kunwari, kinailangan yung presence ni director to have a quorum or kinailangan yung boto niya to approve the transaction. Pwede pa rin itong maging valid as long as it will be ratified by the stockholders representing 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Ang requirement lang dito for a valid ratification, there was a meeting called for the purpose of ratifying the transaction. There's full disclosure of the interest of the director in the transaction and the contract is fair and reasonable under the circumstance. Ngayon, paano naman kung kunwari majority stockholder pala itong si director or almost all of the shares hawak niya such that boto pa lang niya naka 2/3 na, no? Pwede pa rin bang maging valid? Sabi ng corporation code, yes, as long as it is fair and reasonable under the circumstance. So sabi natin yung fair and reasonable under the circumstance, yung hindi nawawalang requirement. Yun nga lang, wala kasi tayong definitive rule on what will be constituted as fair and reasonable. So it will be a case-to-case basis or a question of fact that the courts would have to determine in case that there will be a stockholder who will complain. No? Who will complain. Okay? So those are the 3 instances where the transaction of the self-dealing director will still be regarded as valid. Paano ngayon kung officer ang katransact ng corporation? Voidable din ang treatment natin for the same logic that he may take advantage of his position as a corporate officer. Except with regards a previous authorization coming from the board na nag-approve na ng transaction beforehand, no? Then hindi na yan voidable. Valid na. No? Kasi may previous authorization naman na coming from the board of directors. And the last, with regards to the 4 doctrines covered for the duty of loyalty will be an interlocking director. Dito, ang transaction is between 2 corporations, but the 2 corporations have the same director. So, dito naman, as a general rule, valid ang transaction na ito. Kasi the corporations still, as we have mentioned, have separate juridical personalities. That's why transactions between them, even if they have the same director na tinatawag na nating interlocking director, will still be generally valid as opposed to sa self-dealing na generally voidable. No? But take note, it will still be voidable if there is fraud involved in the transaction or if in one corporation, the interlocking director has substantial interest, which means it exceeds 20%, but in the other corporation, nominal lang ang kanyang shareholdings. No? Ang nagiging tendency tuloy dyan, dahil substantial dun sa isa, the director would tend to make the transaction more favorable to the corporation na meron siyang substantial interest. Kaya ang nagiging treatment dyan, doon sa corporation kung saan nominal lang ang interest niya, it will be voidable at the option of that corporation. Ang treatment sa kanya will be a self-dealing director. So i-apply natin yung rules kanina with regards to the corporation na nominal lang ang kanyang shares. Okay, now, so let's take this illustration. So may transaction between A and B corporation and X is a director in both. So X would be considered an interlocking director. As we have mentioned, absent fraud, as a general rule, the transaction will be valid. No? Pero with regards to the ownership, kung kunwari yan, ang ownership ni X kay A corporation ay 20, which is still nominal dahil dapat exceeds 20%, at kay B ay 10% nominal din, valid din ang transaction na yan kasi nominal in both. No, dapat nominal sa isa, substantial sa isa in order to be voidable. So kung kunwari 25 sa isa, which is now substantial, 40 kay B, which is still substantial, then valid din ang transaction between A and B. But if in A, the ownership of X is 15%, which is nominal, but in B, it is 30, which is substantial, it will now be voidable at the option of A corporation. In which case, X will be regarded as a self-dealing director. So generally voidable, again, except in the 3 instances that we have mentioned earlier, yung quorum, hindi required ang presence niya for a quorum, hindi required ang vote niya for approval, and fair and reasonable under the circumstance. Or kahit wala yung quorum, vote, pero ratified, or lastly, kahit substantial ang ownership, pero fair and reasonable under the circumstance, magiging valid din. So the rules on self-dealing directors will be applicable with regards X in his relationship with A corporation na nominal lang ang kanyang shareholding. So yan ang 4 na doctrines related to the director's duty of loyalty. Ngayon, in cases where directors or officers will commit any unlawful acts or administratively, it will be detrimental to the stockholders or the corporations, merong 3 klase ng suit na pwedeng i-file. Pero ang differences lang naman talaga nila, para mas madali nating matandaan, ay sino ang real party in interest or sino ang injured party. Yun lang ang tinitignan natin dito in classifying the 3 kinds of suits. Sino ang injured party? Kung nag-iisang stockholder lang, ang injured party pertaining to his own rights as a stockholder, we call it an individual suit or a personal action. No? So kunwari, denial of his right to inspect corporate books and records, or denial of his preemptive right invalidly, no? Dahil karapatan niya mismo ang na-injure, then he will file an individual or personal action. Kung marami silang stockholders na involved, no, but their own rights as stockholders ang ang violated, then it will be called a representative or a class suit. Dumami lang. No? But if the injured party or the real party in interest will be the corporation itself, then it will be called a derivative suit. So ang nagpa-file nito ay stockholder, pero ang totoong injured party ay corporation. Kaya ang pangalan pa rin ng kaso ay nakapangalan pa rin sa corporation versus the earning directors or the officers. So this is not a suit to enforce the rights of the stockholders per se, but to enforce the rights of the corporation against its own directors or officers. Again, ang differences lang ay sino ba ang injured party who will initiate which type of action involved. All right? Now, we also have what you call an executive committee. An executive committee is composed of not less than 3 members of the board who will exercise all the rights of the board of directors and approve transactions by a majority vote of the members of the executive committee alone. So anything that is within the ambit or powers of the board may be exercised by the executive committee as a rule, except for 5 things. No? So kung kunwari, may nag-a-apply as a new supplier or merong nag-a-apply as a creditor or as a borrower, kung na kailangan ng approval ng board, pwede lang si executive committee ang mag-approve yan. This is more for practicality. No? Kasi lalo na kunwari marami ang members ng board mo, kung 15, impractical na tawagin mo pang silang lahat kung day-to-day lang naman yung kailangan ng approval. So the executive committee can do that, no? Or any other matter that may be delegated to the executive committee by the bylaws or on a majority vote of the board of directors. Take note, however, that they will have no power, sabi natin, 5 items ito. Number 1, to approve any transactions which the stockholders' approval will be required. So to fill up vacancies in the board, to amend or repeal the bylaws or adopt new bylaws, or even amend or repeal resolutions of the entire board, particularly if the terms of the resolution is that they are not amendable or repealable, or to declare cash dividends to the shareholders. So lahat ito remains to be powers that are reserved for the entire board of directors. Hindi pwedeng executive committee lang ang gagawa. So for example, can the executive committee declare stock dividends? Kasi ang sabi lang po sa batas, distribute cash dividends lang ang bawal. Hindi rin. Na? Because it will fall under this category. Kasi kailangan ng approval ng stockholders if the corporation will declare stock dividends. So hindi rin pwede na executive committee lamang, dapat board of directors in its entirety. All right? Now, take note under the revised corporation code, a corporation now, okay, the Section 34 now covers also management committees and other committees that may be formed, whether it's temporary or permanent in nature. Some example of committees indicated in the revised code of corporate governance will be the audit committee, the nomination committee, and the remuneration committee. Ayan. Yan yung mga nasa revised code of corporate governance. An audit committee will concern itself with anything audit related, whether internal or external. In fact, with regards to an external audit, pag kayo ay naging CPAs na, at nag-work kayo sa auditing firm, sa audit committee muna, ipipresent yung mga findings before they are presented to the board of directors. Finifilter na. At ganun din kapag merong internal audit, they are directly reporting to the audit committee. Take note, all of this are composed of members of the board. At least 3 din, no? At least 3. Katulad din sa executive committee. So, audit committee with regards internal controls or compliance with rules and regulations or laws, audit committee din ang nag-check niyan. No? Kaya yung internal audit normally is directly reporting to the audit committee para hindi siya nasusway ng management, which is supposedly under the supervision of the board of directors. Nomination committee, on the other hand, filters the qualifications for the corporate officers as well as the directors for that matter, kaya sila nomination committee. And remuneration committee, as the name would suggest, will be the committee tasked to fix the compensation of the directors as well as that of the corporate officers, and all other compensation that needs the approval of the board of directors. So for practicality purposes then, there are matters that will be discussed within the respective committees na minsan hindi na kailangang umabot pa ng board of directors in its entirety. Kasi nga, for practicality, at least 3 members of the board na lang ang mag-handle. Alright? With those respective committees. Now, corporate officers, on the other hand, in the revised corporation code, we still have the president who is still required to be a director. The treasurer, who now under the revised corporation code must be a resident. Dati ito lang ang nakasulat dyan. So hindi mo alam kung ano talagang requirement. Wala talagang requirement dati, no? So ngayon requirement na si treasurer dapat resident. And you also have the corporate secretary who is required not only to be a resident but also a citizen of the Philippines. In fact, si corporate secretary under the revised code of corporate governance is preferably a lawyer. Pero hindi naman required. Although I've never seen yet a corporation, at least a malaking corporation, no, na hindi lawyer ang corporate secretary. It's almost always, for big corporations, corporate secretaries are lawyers. Okay? And other officers that may be provided for in the bylaws. But under the revised corporation code, a compliance officer will now be required for corporations vested with public interest. Ayan, we're back. Sorry talaga kasi biglang sumingit yung board meeting today. Tapos bigla akong pinatawag. So again, for corporate officers, ayan, may bago na tayong compliance officer now required under the corporation code, which is actually not a new corporate officer, no? Kasi nasa revised code of corporate governance na siya before. As the name would suggest, this particular corporate officer will be having the duty of making sure that the corporation is compliant with all laws, rules, and regulations applicable to it, no? Kaya nga, kung kunwari, bangko, ang corporation, the compliance officer will be the one concerned with complying with BSP issuances, PDIC issuances, even SEC issuances. No? Kaya preferably din, the compliance officer would be a lawyer pero hindi naman required. Okay? Yung nga sa amin sa bangko, meron kaming compliance officer pero yung SEC ang gumagawa pa rin ay corporate secretary, yung tax hindi rin niya hawak kasi ako naman yung compliance officer for tax. Pero yung compliance officer namin will be with regards BSP, PDIC, and other regulatory requirements. Under the revised code of corporate governance, if there will be no compliance officer, all duties of the compliance officer will rest on the corporate secretary. No? Kaya nga, preferably din, lawyer sana si corporate secretary. But take note that the compliance officer will be required only for corporations vested with public interest. All other types of corporation may or may not have their own compliance officer. Now, any two positions may be held concurrently by the same person except president and secretary. So si president, hindi siya pwedeng siya rin ang secretary. Si president, hindi rin siya pwedeng siya rin ang treasurer. No? But take note, later on when we get to one-person corporation, pagdating sa OPC, ang presidente who is also the sole stockholder, sole director, and automatically the president of the one-person corporation cannot still be the secretary. No? Kasi one of the duties of the secretary of the one-person corp is to inform the SEC na namatay na or incapacitated na yung sole stockholder. So, paano mo gagawin yun kung ikaw din yung dapat mag-inform, di ba? So, but the president of the one-person corporation is now allowed to be the treasurer, okay? But only in a one-person corporation with the requirement of posting a bond and an undertaking that he will comply or manage the finances of the corporation in accordance with its articles and bylaws. So, yan ang nagiging exception natin with regards to this rule. But otherwise, the president cannot be the secretary or the president cannot be the treasurer. So si secretary ba pwede maging treasurer? Pwede. No? Kasi yan lang yung mga pinagbawal na that will. So, with regards to the authority of a corporate officer to act in behalf of the corporation, as a rule, pwede, because they will be considered agents that will represent and bind the corporation in the transactions related to the corporation. So, ang powers nila will also be either intentionally conferred or yung tinatawag na nating express powers, or those that may be incidental in the ordinary course of business or may be implied from those that are intentionally conferred, or those that may be from customs and usage that will be usually pertaining to that particular officer or agent. And apparent powers, again, no, on the face itself, it appears that they actually have authority to enter into that transaction. In which case, in case that they have a transaction with an innocent party, no, kahit pa outside the actual authority pero apparently may ownership or may authority rather, then magiging binding pa rin sa corporation yung act nila. Now, as we have mentioned earlier, as a general rule, a corporate officer or director for that matter cannot be made liable in his personal capacity, absence bad faith or malice, particularly if they are acting in their official capacity only. No? Nevertheless, personal liability may attach to a director, trustee, or officer whenever he assents to a patently lawful act of the corporation for bad faith or gross negligence in directing its affairs or conflict of interest resulting in damages to the corporation, stockholders, or other persons. He can also be personally liable if he consents to the issuance of watered stocks, and in order to escape this liability, the objection to the issuance of the watered stocks must be in writing. Na? Kasi kung nag-object lang siya sa meeting pero hindi niya binigay yung objection niya in writing, pwede pa rin siyang maging liable for the issuance of the watered stock. Or if he agrees to hold himself solidarily liable with the corporation, which is the more common way of making them liable, in the bank, we normally require the issuance of a JSS, I forgot how we call it, but it's an undertaking of the principal officers that they will be personally liable with the corporation for the loan obligation. So in that case, they are being sued also in their personal liability, even if they sign only in their official capacity. Or if by a specific provision of the law, they are made liable to answer for corporate action. So ito lang din ang kakaibang requirement with regards to the election of corporate officers, because as a general rule, the requirement for a board of directors resolution on any transaction, no, as a general rule, will be majority of those present. As long as those present in the meeting constitutes a quorum. No? So kung kunwari 9 ang number of directors mo, okay, tapos 7 ang present, the number of votes that you will be required to approve a transaction will be, or kunwari 5 lang ang present, yan. 3, no? Ito lang ang required kasi majority of those present as long as they constitute a quorum. But with regards to the election of corporate officers, the requirement for a valid election is the majority of all the members of the board. So yan ang nagiging exception natin sa rule na ito, no? As to the voting requirement for board of directors. So kung kunwari 9 ang number of directors mo, 5 ang present in the meeting, and ang purpose ng meeting nila is to elect corporate officers, the required number of votes to validly elect will still be 5, which is the majority of the total number of directors, okay? Instead of just those present in the meeting. Okay, yan yung isang kakaibang voting requirement as to election of corporate officers. So, let's just take these poll questions before we end our discussion today. Bigay ko na lang ang sagot for lack of material time. Sige, andali. Na-lunch ko na yung poll. So the following are the qualifications of a director, except letter A will be the incorrect qualification here. Dapat kasi at least 1 share lang, no? Not necessarily 1%. So kahit less than 1% ang shareholding niya, basta merong isa, pwede na siyang maging director. Now take note again that the residency requirement for directors has already been removed under the revised corporation code. Number 12, A is a stockholder of Silvestre Corporation who holds 10,000 shares. A stockholders meeting was called to elect members of a 5-man board. How many votes can A cast in favor of B? If they employed cumulative voting, that will be 50,000 votes. Kasi pag cumulative voting, sabi natin, the number of shares that you have multiplied by the number of directors to be elected. So dahil 10,000 times 5, that will give you 50,000 votes that A can cast. Okay? Now, A, B, C, D, and E are members of the board of directors. Nag-retire si A and namatay si D. In this case, who shall fill up the vacancy? It will be E, B, and C. Pakorek na lang ako dyan sa inyong handout. Parang A pa ata yung nakalagay dito. Dapat E, no? Kasi nga nag-retire na si A.